Welcome back. Thank you once again for joining us here on Facebook Live as we continue to explore what there is to see in the evening sky. I'm happy to say that we are going to be continuing this monthly feature with our planetarium educator, Thaddeus. And now he's going to be sharing with us as we get prepared for August and some great evening sky viewing. He's going to be sharing some tips and tricks of things that you can look for in the coming month. So I'm going to turn things over to him so he can get right started. Thanks for joining us.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Exploring Our Skies going into August. And if you've tuned in before, we're going to spend a minute here talking about the end of July as well, because there's always a couple cool things happening before we get into the next month. But my name is Thaddeus. I'm the planetarium educator here at the Bell. And let's jump right into it. I'm going to be using, as I do every month, the fantastic program known as Stellarium. Stellarium is a free open source piece of programming, piece of software. I love it. It's great. It is one of the best ways to find out what's in the night sky, besides, of course, coming to the Whitney and Elizabeth Macmillan Planetarium here at the Bell Museum. That's actually the absolute best way, but Stellarium is pretty good too. All right, I think Amber can give me a thumbs up. That was enough marketing, right, for that. All right. So we've got Stellarium. This is what Stellarium looks like, the way I've set it up. It might look a little different when you install it. It's available for your laptop and phone and all sorts of different things. But we're looking from here in Minneapolis, and the date and time is up in my left side here, showing that it's tonight, about 10:23 here, 22:23. Now, I recognize that right now, as I've looked outside, it's very hazy, very cloudy. Weather doesn't look fantastic the next few nights, but if it does clear up where you are tonight or the next few nights, there's some really cool things happening that you can watch for. Actually, some repeat things that are happening. We can actually see that if we get time moving forward just a little bit there. There we go. We can see the time ticking forward just a little bit there. And we're looking west-northwest. You might see those letters down at the bottom. And if you're doing that the next few nights at some different times, you might see this bright point of light moving across the night sky. This is the International Space Station. So we are in a fantastic week going forward here, where we're going to have some multiple passes every night for the next week or so. These are all going to be really great times to see the International Space Station. Not your only time, don't get me wrong. The ISS goes around the Earth every 90 minutes, so we have lots of times to see it. But the next week especially, we'll have some great times, all about an hour or two after sunset, so 9, 10 o'clock. And these are passes when the ISS is going above our heads, and it's going to happen for several minutes, actually. The ISS will be visible for several minutes in the sky. And Amber, I think, has got a link that she'll drop in the chat there, where you can go find out when and where it's happening, where to look. It's coming right from NASA, from Spot the Station, NASA's website for this. And it's very exciting. The ISS is always so cool to see. Like I said, it's going around the Earth every 90 minutes, moving at 17,000 miles per hour. And right now there are 10 astronauts on board. We've had some of the biggest crew complements in the last decade, easily, on board the ISS right now. They've been upgrading the space station. They've been adding new solar panels. There is actually a new Russian module that is going up to extend the capabilities of the ISS, to give a new docking port and some additional living quarters. It is kind of cramped up there. And yeah, it's so cool to see ISS. I think it is truly, if we think about some of the modern marvels of engineering, I think this is easily in the top. Well, I guess I'd say it's number one modern marvel piece of modern marvel piece of engineering going above our heads here. All right, and again, this is happening over the next week or so. So you got time to see it, even if it is still cloudy tonight. All right, letting the ISS go on our way. Let's actually head a couple days into the future, and I'll head actually over to the second. And I'll move Stellarium over, and we're going to look, if you're looking for direction in the sky, if you don't have those red letters that Stellarium does, remember the sun sets in the west. So if you know where the sun went down, you know where west is. So west-northwest there, where we're looking, is roughly where the sun is setting. But But if we head over to the east, the southeast in particular, at about 10 o'clock on the 2nd, we have a very special night in time. On the night of the 2nd, the planet Saturn is at opposition. Now, you might hear a lot about this in the news. It comes up in astronomy news on a regular basis when things are at opposition. Opposition is a pretty simple thing. It means whenever some celestial object, like, say, Saturn, is directly opposite the sun in our sky. So if you imagine we're sitting here on the Earth, the sun is on one side right over here, and then 180 degrees away, that's where another object is, in this case, Saturn. And this is a great moment in time because this is when the object, whatever it is visible throughout the entire night from sunset to sunrise. It's usually the highest above the horizon. It's the closest it gets to the Earth, even if that's only a few million miles closer in the case of Saturn. And it's a tiny little bit easier to see, especially if you're an astrophotographer. So if you're really interested in taking images of planets, opposition is a great time to do that because it's a little closer, a little brighter, makes it just that little bit easier, which, as someone who's tried to take images, who's taken some images of the sky, I would personally take every little bit of luck that I can get, luck and help that I can get. And Saturn is a magnificent sight. Now, even if you don't see it right at opposition, that's fine. It's in our sky throughout the rest of the summer and the fall, so it's always beautiful to look at. Don't get too hung up on opposition here, though it might help a little bit. If you've got binoculars or a telescope, it's great to look at. You might see, even with just binoculars, might pick out some of the moons of Saturn, particularly like Titan might be visible. And Saturn itself might be like a bright oval in the sky. A small telescope, 4 inches across and larger going upwards, you'll start to see a distinct ring system, start to pick out some of the other moons like Dione or Enceladus here. So you get a larger telescope. It might actually start to look quite a bit more like this. Saturn truly looks like what it should look like. If you've seen a picture of Saturn and you see it through a telescope, you'll just be like, wow, this is it. This is the real thing. It never disappoints. In particular, I always try to look for this gap in there. That's usually a good indication if it's a good night, if you can see this gap, the Cassini Gap or Cassini division. This is a gap in the rings formed by one of the larger moons called Mimas. This one over here, one of the shepherd moons of Saturn. Ooh, Mimas is floating away. Hold on a second. Let's keep that in view there. All right, Stellarium did not want me to click on Mimas. But Mimas's gravity pulls on the ring particles and Saturn's gravity pulls on the particles of the rings. And this tug of war causes areas of instability. And it causes in particular this large gap here, about 1,000 miles across or so, the Cassini Gap, Cassini division. Other gaps are formed by moons like Pan. See if way down there, the moon Pan again over in the left, that actually carves out a path as it goes to the rings. It kind of acts like a snowplow going through the rings there. And I apologize to everyone in Minnesota. I know I said the S word. I apologize. Now, opposition again on the 2nd, on August 2nd, that's when Saturn's at opposition. And not far behind it in time and space, in fact, even a little bit closer to the Earth, is Jupiter. And Jupiter's opposition is occurring later in the month. This is actually occurring all the way on the night of the 19th. So we'll just for the sake of things, we'll go forward to the 19th here. And Jupiter's nicely over here. Again, beautiful planet to look at. You can spend so much time with just these two planets, even just one of these planets, you really get into it. Jupiter especially, because one super cool thing about Jupiter, and something that's very easy to see, are the Galilean moons. So not even Jupiter itself, it's these moons going around it. The 4 moons, Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto. And what's cool here is that when you look at Jupiter, you can see these moons with good pair of binoculars, 10 by 50s, definitely any small telescope. When you look at them, you hopefully won't actually see them all at first. Looking at Jupiter at one point in time, you might see all 4 moons, but you may also see just 3 or 2, maybe even just 1 if you can't find them all, and they'll change, they'll move. So over just the course of a night, just the course of an hour, these moons will change where they are around Saturn. So we were there at 2200. I'll go all the way to 11 o'clock on the night of the 19th. And Io has just started to come out from around Jupiter. We go a little bit further and it appears, it pops into view there. So nothing, and then suddenly you've got all four. You might, yes.
Can I jump in real quick? We have a great question that's relevant to our current kind of weather situation, I guess.
Yes.
And April is wondering if we can continue to see Saturn and all of these planets with all the smoke in our area right now.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Great question. Great question. So given the weather conditions, well, clouds, of course. So yeah, let's be fair. We're looking at this view of the night sky, and it's like a perfect view of the sky, right? Perfect conditions. We can see these things on our screen however we want. When we're looking in the, the real night sky out there, the authentic night sky outside, there's a lot of things that block our view. And smoke is going to be, if it's not, I think it will be a deterrent in some ways. One big way is, of course, if it's making your throat itch, you're not going to want to spend too much time outside. You're going to want to keep an eye on the air quality. So make sure, if you've got asthma or other conditions, make sure you stargaze safely. They'll also just sort of the general layer of haze will dim these objects down. That's one big thing that it will also, one other big thing that it will do. So where we see them here is very bright points of light. You might imagine like a film across the screen dimming it down. That's what the haze will do. You may actually try to determine your sky conditions in a few ways. Go out every night that you can to get an idea of what the sky looks like, and look for some bright stars. So actually just looking here around Jupiter, we got a bright star up here. This is Saturn Is in Beta Aquarii in Aquarius. I always try to pronounce things and it doesn't work well. It's a fairly bright star. It's about magnitude 3 star, which is pretty bright, visible within the cities. If you can't see that star, for example, though, you know that the haze is probably pretty bad. Even other bright stars looking around here, that wasn't a great example. Looking near the top of the sky, looking way up here, we have the star Vega. Vega's magnitude 0. This is the standard candle for stars. If you look for Vega one night and it's super clear and bright, and then you go out the next night and you've heard there's some haze and you look at Vega and it just doesn't seem as bright, that's a good indication that the sky, that the air quality there is hampering your view. You can also see as you look at the moon, I found especially because the moon is so bright, you can definitely tell when there's some haze around the moon, whether that's just water clouds or smoke clouds. So all of these things are just a way to gauge what this sort of general sky conditions and what you might then expect to see. Because again, as I was saying here, this is why this is a great question. As I was saying, we're looking at this view of Jupiter. It's like a perfect view. But if you've got some haze there, if Vega's not as bright, if you can't see Saturn Is there, Beta Aquarii, maybe don't feel too bad if you can't see the Galilean moons then. They are dimmer objects. But get out the next time you can, and well, hopefully hopefully our firefighters out there are able to get those blazes under control and while doing so safely as well, so that we can benefit from those clear skies. That is a fantastic question. I should say, I'm not sure I mentioned that. If anyone's got any questions, you're watching this, please put them in the chat. I would love to answer them as soon as I can. So put them in the chat, whatever you're wondering. I can't always promise an answer. I don't know absolutely everything, but I can definitely make something up that sounds believable. I was just talking about stars there. And in fact, coming up to the sky, if you're going out and you're trying to orient yourself to the sky, if you're not exactly sure where west is or east, there's a great group of stars to look for in the sky. And earlier in the evening, go back to about 2200, 10 o'clock here, earlier in the evening, it'll be a little bit further to the east, a little bit later, it'll be further to the west, but it's almost directly south. And this is a group of stars known as the Summer Triangle. And it starts with a star I already mentioned. It's the star Vega. Vega up here is part of the constellation of Lyra, which is the harp. And Vega is it's the 5th brightest star in the entire sky. It's very easy to see and very easy to find. Really, if you're looking for it, I mentioned south, but really it's near the top of the sky. We call the zenith. So one way I like to look for it is I'll go outside and I'll just lie down on my back and I'll just look up. That's it. Because Vega is going to be right near the top of the sky. So I'm just going to look up near the very top of the sky for a very bright star. And then to confirm it, I can look for the stars that make up Lyra. It's a pretty simple constellation. It's depending on how people draw it, there might be 4 or 5 stars here, but there's a little box with a kind of lid coming off it that makes up Lyra. And there's a satellite going by there. There's a Starlink satellite flying by. So Stellarium also shows satellites too, other than the ISS, and that can be also fun to spot. Now from Vega, I'll bring up Vega there again. You can also confirm you're looking at Vega if you look a little bit over to the left of Vega. So, or if you're not sure, left, you want to make sure we're facing the right direction. Look about a hand length away or so. You stick your hand out in the sky, and that's the amount of distance you're looking for there. And look for another bright star over here called Deneb. Now, Deneb is part of another very great constellation called Cygnus the Swan, or the goose. And whether it's a swan or a goose, well, some of that depends on what state you're from, of course. And if you also want to if you want to confirm that you're looking at Cygnus, you might look for the constellation itself kind of looks like a bow and arrow. So that's, I think fairly easy to see with the few stars making up what are the wings of Cygnus, but the end of the bow. And then of course the arrow going straight out with these 4 stars here. I do find, I'm obviously a little biased, but I do find it very easy to recognize and to find in the sky. These are all very bright stars. You can see them all from inside the city. And of course, with city lights, you won't have that Milky Way getting in your way either. So, that helps, I guess, kind of. But from yes.
Yeah. So related to that, Letitia has a great question. And I'm assuming Letitia is here in the metro area. She is wondering if you have a recommendation of a good spot for their family to take their telescope and try and look for some of these objects.
I do. What I'll actually direct you to is we have a list of stargazing sites. And I'm going to try to, Amber, I'm going to put it in the document here. And hopefully I get it right. It's a Z link, which is a link shortener from the U, and it's z.umn.edu/MN stars. And I hope I got that one right, Amber. Probably double check me, make sure that comes to the right site. But that link should take you to a Google map that we put together here at the Bell, a Google map of stargazing sites sort of around the cities. There's some that are a little bit further away. So for some of those darker skies, but sites that are pretty decent. We've got, of course, light pollution here. So not going to promise everything if you're here in the metro area. But there's some sites that are fairly close by that give you more, generally you're sort of looking for unobstructed views of the night sky. So where you don't have a lot of trees and buildings blocking your way, even if you've got light pollution. And then there are sites listed on the map that are further out as well. We've got ones going all the way up a couple hours north, where we've got, of course, much darker skies. You can also, another great resource, they actually have events that will help you with telescopes. This is the Minnesota Astronomical Society. So that's mnastro.org. As I ask Amber to type all these things and put them in the chat. But the Minnesota Astronomical Society hosts stargazing events, and they're slowly opening those back up now too. And also some telescope beginner workshops. So if you want some help setting up your telescope, knowing how it works, they're a great resource. They actually have a star party planned this Saturday, the 31st. And they have and their monthly meeting is coming up next August 5th, which I want to say is a Thursday. Check their website, double check their website on that. But their star party can also be found on their Facebook page too, I assume you're watching this on Facebook. So, you can head over there. After we're done here, just hold on a second. So MAS and also our stargazing site would be my two places to start with. Anyone else who's listening to this or listening to in the future, right? Because this will be, it's on the web now forever. Feel free to send in some sites too. If you know a good stargazing site, feel free to send that in to us. Give us a good, little bit of idea what's there, what you like about it. But I'd love to add some more sites to this list. so we can all take a look at the night sky. Generally speaking, I will say city parks are a great place too. They tend to be pretty flat. And of course, check it. Of course, make sure you're not trespassing or whatever after dark. Check the hours listed, of course. But yeah, that's another great place to go. Also, when you ask questions, I'm going to super long answers. Just heads up to anyone who's just tuning in here, who's never talked to me before about space. Very long answers. I think we still have Stellarium screen shared. I hope that's still on the screen there. I just wanted to complete the summer triangle. That's with the star Altair in the constellation of Aquila, the eagle. That makes up the bottom of the triangle, or the bottom point of the triangle. It helps clarify where the triangle is in the sky. The triangle, when we connect these three stars together, it points down here. Here in July. So the triangle points down, and that points almost directly south. So it's another great way to, center yourself in the sky to find out what direction you're looking and where to then start looking for other things. And I'll point out for those of us in the metro, actually, let me make the sky maybe a little more familiar. Stellarium can mimic the sky in a variety of ways. And what I'll do here is I'll actually bring the stars we can see down a bit. So I'm going to what we call limiting the magnitude, limiting the brightness of stars we can see, and limiting it to magnitude 4. And that's a little, even that might, where I am, even that's a little more than I get to see. I can also say, we don't really have the Milky Way from inside the city. So we'll remove that. And that's more, I'd say more, I'll remove these things, a little more realistic type of sky that we might see, maybe not even that. But we can see the summer triangle then again here with these three stars. It actually stands out a little bit more easily because there's only so many, you're not overwhelmed by stars. This can actually help you track down a few other bright stars nearby it. Over here as we look is Ras Al Ghul or Ras Al Haig, Alpha Ophiuchi, the brightest star in the constellation of Ophiuchus, the serpent bear, there's the serpent bear. In the sky, he's connected with Serpens Caput and Serpens Coda. That's not the one. There's Serpens going on either side. What I also brought up here is Sagittarius, the archer. Sagittarius is visible. It's low to the south, but it's very easy to find because what we've got here is a bright collection of stars, 7 over here, or excuse me, 4 over here, kind of a handle, 3 at the top, kind of like a lid, and then 3 more or 1 connected together here. These 3 here, which make up kind of like a spout. And if you put them together, I'll let you figure out what that's called. You might sing a little song to help yourself out. But Sagittarius is very easy to find. And one great thing about Sagittarius, I don't want to leave it with just these stars. I want to bring some more back. Let me bring back the Milky Way, because the cool thing about Sagittarius and this grouping that is known as the teapot, if you hadn't gotten that, is this part over here, the spout. Well, the Milky Way is actually kind of the steam rising up out of the spout of the teapot. So if you're ever looking for the Milky Way in the sky, if you've never seen it before, or if you're not sure that you're seeing it, groups of stars like the teapot there in Sagittarius, that can help confirm for you that, yeah, this is the Milky Way. Cygnus the Swan is also really great about that, because Cygnus, the arrow here, as I mentioned, or the neck of the swan, that points right along the Milky Way. So I know if I can find Cygnus, then I know I can find the Milky Way. Although, of course, light pollution might not allow that. I'm going to bring back some of these stars. I'm going to bring our magnitude. I'm actually going to bring it way up or way down in a sense to about magnitude 9, just like give a much better view of the sky. A lot more stars there. I know maybe it's not the most realistic for the metro, but more stick to the reality. Yeah.
While you're doing that, and we're still here in the southern sky, April is joining us from Mankato, and she mentioned that she has a great view from her backyard of the southern sky, and has a question a little bit about orientation, about kind of the best place to start and where to look first, maybe. Yeah.
The southern, that looking to the south, actually, that's that. Look at that short answer. First time in my life. That's not totally true even. we spend a lot of time in the planetarium world focused looking directly south. And the reason for that is this is where we find, to be a little technical here, this is where we find a part of the sky called the ecliptic, which I don't quickly see it on my list here to bring up. The ecliptic is the path that the sun moves across the sky. So it's an imaginary line, but the ecliptic is also the path the planets move along. So we look for this area of the sky known as the ecliptic because this is where we find the planets. And the planets then all move in the southern part of the sky. So we see Jupiter and Saturn here. And if we go throughout the night, we can see Jupiter and Saturn moving along, as well as the moon, moving from east to west, but always lower to the southern sky. And we go forward through the day, and there's the sun also moving through the southern sky. Of course, very high here in the summer months. Jupiter and Saturn come back along. We're on the 21st, the moon's change, but all the planets are there to the south. And the planets are the easiest, along with the moon, the planets are the easiest thing to see in the night sky. Even if we've got that smoke hiding the other stars, the planets are at least going to probably poke, they're going to poke through that haze. They're just that bright. And that's because they're reflecting light from the sun. So their source of light is not from themselves, as it were, but it's from the sun. And it's much closer to us. We get more of light from that then. So starting with the south is I think a good way to do it. That being said, every direction has a lot of going for it. If you're stargazing early in the evening, so when the sun has just set, say a little past 9 o'clock, I might look to the east because with the sun at my back, this part of the sky is darker. So in fact, if we head all the way over to the west here, it's a little harder to tell in Stellarium, but we still got some glow from the setting sun. Looking way back over to the east here, well, there's no glow. The setting sun's it's back behind us. So the east then has darker skies, just a tiny bit, but it's where we'll start to see more stars first. So I will say, in fact, just a couple of weeks ago, I was out stargazing. I was actually in New Mexico, not here. And we had a lot of clouds. But it was early in the evening, and I really wanted to see stuff, and I was looking to the east because of that, because it's a little bit darker. I was also looking to the east because when I was doing that, the full moon, or it wasn't the full moon, excuse me, it was the first quarter-ish moon or something, 80%, 70% moon, whatever. It was a very bright moon, and it was also over to the southeast. So I was also trying to face away from the moon because the moon is incredibly bright. We're here. In fact, it looks like the 21st. Oh, look at that. We're about the full moon. So the full moon will make things very hard to see just because it is so bright. Keeping it at your back will help you as well. And then, east is great, but you know what? North is great. North is great too. Especially because I do think, generally speaking, if you're really, trying to find your way in the sky, where are you looking? What direction are you looking? North is easy to find, right? How do we find the north? How do we find north? And I'll let you think about that for a second. We need something that's to the north. And, we're looking in the sky where there's lots of stars. So all right, I can hear you screaming at the screens there. Yes, we look for the North Star. The North Star is always right to the north. It's right above the North Pole of the Earth, actually. So as we spin around, it's the one point that stays still as everything else moves in the sky. We can see that here in Stellarium pretty easily. We just fast forward through time and everything's flying around. I'll actually turn off the satellites because they're getting a little distracting for me. But we can see these stars moving around. This is actually the motion of the Earth causing that change. And there we go. There's one point, not moving, right there. Polaris, the North Star, the end of the Little Dipper, or Ursa Minor. But if you're not able to fast forward through time every night, which is weird, I don't know, I can do it. It's pretty easy. You can find the North Star another way. I know some of you already scream at the screen, like, why isn't he getting to this? Well, here we are, the Big Dipper and Ursa Major attached to it. But these 7 stars over here that make up the Big Dipper are our guide to the night sky. The 2 stars in the bucket here, Dubhe and Merak, or Merak and Dubhe if you're going in this direction, Merak and Dubhe, they point to the North Star. So you have to imagine a line going outwards out to the North Star there. It's about 2 hand lengths away. I'm using Stargazing's angle measure to draw that line in. But they're about 2 hand lengths away from the bucket of the Big Dipper is the North Star. And that's easy, incredibly easy way to find it. As we go later in the month, there are other ways to find the North Star. Looking on the other side here, we have Cassiopeia. Cassiopeia is a W or an M, again, depending on what state you're from. And she was a very vain queen in ancient Greece or Ethiopian mythology. Bring it back there. And Cassiopeia here, this W, sort of as I look at it here, tilting my head to the left, it's got one straight side here. And then if you draw a right angle from that, what do you know? You find the North Star again, also at 2 hand lengths from the bottom of Cassiopeia. So the North Star is very easy to find. And, as much as I love the south, the southern sky there with all the planets, maybe we should just start at the north then. Maybe this is the best place to start because that really gives us a sense of direction. You're facing north, south is at your back, east is to your right, west is to your left, and there you go. And then as you fill in these things, I'm just bringing up a few more constellations that are always fun to look for. There's Cygnus back up there. There's Drake. Actually, let me spend a moment. I was out in the desert a few weeks ago, and even though it was cloudy, it was dark skies. It was hours away from Albuquerque, the major city there. And I was really hoping, and I got to see a beautiful deep sky object, one of my absolute favorites. I'm sure I have some friends watching this who know exactly where this is going. And yes, I'm going to talk about the Cat's Eye Nebula yet again. So as we look in the constellation of Draco, keep him up here, he's a dragon here, and he's found right near the Little Dipper or the Little Bear. And if you take the 2 stars in the bucket of the Big Dipper or the Little Dipper here, and you sort of go crosswise into the neck of Draco, right around here, you sort of like here, and then you look up a little bit. These are not exact stargazing directions. I apologize. Right about here is where you can find the Cat's Eye Nebula. And I'll just do a quick search here to make it easier for us. There, a little bit further away. This is a beautiful deep sky object. It is a planetary nebula. And in fact, through a telescope, it looks pretty much like this. It's a little blue fuzzy spot in the sky. But a planetary nebula is a dead star. So looking at planetary nebulas gives us a way to look at the future of our own Milky Way galaxy, or of our own sun, not the Milky Way, our own sun. When our sun dies in about 5 billion years, it will expand outwards and it will cool down. And the inner core will shrink down into a white dwarf. And this entire complex of gaseous outer layers that are cooling down and a hot inner core will create this really incredible structure that we call a planetary nebula. We can see that here, these sort of filaments going outwards from this bright center, these different colors we can see. This is all this complex atmosphere of this dead star. Or in a sense, still dying, still dissipating slowly as it drifts off out into space. But it's an incredible object, especially because this material doesn't just disappear into the cosmos. It becomes part of our Milky Way galaxy. This gas that was part of the original star is still out there. It's heading outwards. And eventually will probably join with other gas and dust. It will become part of a star forming region. It will become part of new stars and new planets forming billions of years in the future. So truly looking at something like the Cat's Eye Nebula is looking at the future of our own sun, but it's also looking at how the stars shape the future of galaxies, how they evolve, change over billions of years. This is not by any means the only deep sky object out there. The reason we start to look for all these constellations is so that we can find these other objects in the sky. So we can find these things that we need binoculars or a telescope to see. And the Cat's Eye Nebula, you do need a telescope to see that. But these constellations give us a way to narrow down parts of the sky. If I tell you to look for the Cat's Eye Nebula, and that's all I tell you, it's not very helpful. But if I tell you should look for Draco and look for the Cat's Eye Nebula, well, now we're getting somewhere. Stellarium here pops up a million deep sky objects, more than you could look at in a single night. So I'm actually going to limit us a little bit again, just to narrow down some of them. Maybe we'll even do that right there. So I'm leaving just the Messier objects up, the Messier catalog, and I've limited them to 8.5 magnitude. So a little fainter than our eyes can see. So things that are easier to see then, again, binoculars, telescope. And looking here, there's still a dozen objects to look for. Amber, you've been so great. Just looking at what we see on the screen, any of these names, any of them just sound interesting to you?
I think I see M92 floating around somewhere up.
Right over here?
Yeah.
Excellent. So I'm glad you picked this one because this is one I actually do know a little bit about. I realized as I asked you, I was like, oh, this might not go well. But one great thing as well about Stellarium is it's telling me just from this little marker there, it's kind of maybe a little hard to see. M92 near Hercules is a globular cluster. And I should say here, again, I want to explain how to find it briefly. Vega's right over here. So Vega is in Lyra. It's that star right near the top of the sky. Very easy to find. Right near Vega, about a hand length away, we have 4 bright stars that make up what we'll call a keystone. We call it the keystone of Hercules. And coming right off the top of the keystone, then right off the wider line at the top, we can nudge our telescopes and find M92, Messier 92. This is still a pretty bright object. Magnitude 6 is decently bright. And it's a collection of stars that are approximately, if I recall correctly, this one, it's going to be about 12 billion years old, plus or minus a billion, half a billion years. But globular clusters like this, and it's not the only one like it, globular clusters represent stars that date back to the beginning of the universe, or about as close as we can get. They're clusters of hundreds of thousands of old stars, and they're orbiting around the Milky Way galaxy. At least this one we see here. In fact, every galaxy we see has globulars that we can see close enough or well enough, has globulars associated with it. They seem to be a natural part of galactic formation. In fact, some of the latest research says now that globulars actually formed inside galaxies. They formed inside galaxies early on as galaxies were forming. And then as galaxies started to merge, as they collided and merged together, these globular clusters, these huge clusters of stars, they were actually thrown outwards. So they started to orbit outwards above and below these galaxies. So they actually allow us to track then how galaxies have changed. It's amazing. M92 here, we can see it's got a fairly bright core, but it's also got, it's not just a bright core. It's sort of, I would say, I might describe this as sort of continuous. It's a continuous brightness. We do have some brighter stars speckled in throughout it. These are going to be ones that are a little bit easier to see with, I'd even try for this one with binoculars. Good binoculars, again, like 10 by 50s. But I would probably try for this one. I think it's worth a shot, definitely. So you don't need to find a telescope to see it. I would probably guess, based on what I've seen of globulars before, that if you're looking for it with binoculars, it might look a tiny bit like that. And I realize we might be seeing different things on our screen, but I would describe what I'm seeing here as like a tiny little puffball, kind of like the seeds on a what's the flower? Amber, you got to help me out with this one. The flower, you got a little puffball on top.
Dandelion.
A dandelion. Oh my God, how did I forget dandelion? Thank you. Oh, it's been a long week. What day? Thursday? Is it the only Thursday? So I might describe it as like a little puffball of a dandelion. And yeah, that's binoculars. Looking with a telescope, you do start to see more telescopes, that are larger. They're collecting more light. They're allowing you to see fainter objects. And it might start to look kind of like almost like a cotton ball here. I knew that one. Almost like a cotton ball of stars. Again, the brighter ones coming out a little bit more easily. And there are globulars all across the sky. Just nearby M92 is M13, or the Great Globular Cluster in Hercules. Again, we'll zoom in a little bit. We can see there's some similarities, though we've got 2 bright spots here. That doesn't seem right. but in this case, we don't have that same bright central core. So this hasn't undergone what we call core collapse, where the most massive stars have moved inwards. We see more just the same size, medium-sized stars scattered throughout this particular globular cluster here. So globulars are amazing. We can see, again, the little markers here are showing which ones are globulars. There's a few even nearby the Milky Way. Most of them are the main disk of the Milky Way. Most of them are much further away. They're fantastic. One of my absolute favorite types of objects to look at in the night sky. All right, Amber, I want to see we've gone a little over time. There's one final thing I just need to mention, and that is what is happening all throughout the month. In fact, it's happening right now at the end of August, July. It's been happening for the last 2 weeks. It will be happening throughout all of August, but it's peaking on the night of August 12th, going into the early morning of the 13th. And that is the Perseids meteor shower. This is a yearly meteor shower, and it is widely regarded as one of the best meteor showers. So all throughout the month, though, but especially around the second week of August, you should be able to head outside and see meteors streaking across the sky. These will be bright, second-long flashes of light, shooting stars. And the Perseids is great because the meteor shower is very prolific. There are a lot of meteors associated with it. The estimates I've seen range from anywhere from like 90 to 120 meteors per hour, which is a lot. That's a couple every minute at, if it's that high number. To see the Perseids, you don't need any special equipment. You don't want any special equipment. In fact, the only special thing I'd recommend is a lawn chair or a blanket, because you really just want to lie down on the ground and look up. Meteors will appear from, in a sense, almost anywhere in the sky. They're not going to be any specific direction. If you track them over time, if you take like a long exposure shot of the night sky, if you have a camera, you would find that the Perseids, these particular meteors, all do appear to come from a point in the sky back to the northeast, known as the radiant of the Perseids, which is in the constellation of Perseus. Appropriately enough, that's why it's named the Perseids. So the meteors will appear to come from this point in the sky, but that actually means you kind of want to face away from that. I guess I should say, maybe don't look anywhere. You kind of want the Perseus, this constellation, at your back, so behind your head. And then look for these bright flashes of light going across the sky. Great meteor shower. Again, it's happening right now. It's happening throughout August. If you're watching this on August 14th and you're like, oh, no, I missed it. No, you didn't. Go out and look for it. This particular week of August is also pretty great for it, though, because one thing that makes it really great is the moon is not even first quarter. So without the moon in the sky, it means we have just a little less light pollution. So again, easier to see things. But meteors, you can see them even from inside the city. So don't despair. Get out whenever you can and look up at the night sky. And Amber, I think that's where we'll leave it today.
Thank you so much. I'm very much looking forward to going outside and checking out meteors. We hope that everyone has some wonderful evenings looking up at the sky as we head into August. If you ever find yourself, hopefully there will be a couple of nights where there's not a lot of haze from the smoke or there's not a lot of clouds, so that you'll have some wonderful evening sky viewing. If you're ever in a situation where you want to escape the heat, come join us at the Bell Museum. We'd love to see you in the planetarium. You can buy tickets online. We are open once again Tuesday through Sunday from 10 to 4. So we'd love to see you inside the dome as well if you want to learn a little bit more about the evening sky in the wonderful air conditioning. So thank you very much for your wonderful questions. We will see you next month as we continue to explore the Minnesota night skies.
All right, stay safe, everyone.